Almanac estimates that currently there are between 50 to 60,000 homeless people living in LA County. In LACHC, we see about 5,000 of those patients that are currently living in LA, which is around 10% of the homeless population of LA. And so this is a problem for us because a lot of complications arise from living on the streets, such as the obvious ones as food insecurity, no shelter, poor sleeping condition, excessive walking, which leads to foot complication, as well as other traumas such as post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse and alcohol abuse, other mental health diseases such as depression and anxiety. They all are complicating factors of homelessness that we see in our patients. Additionally to that, we also have 40% of our homeless patients are also diabetic.
So of our diabetic patients, a lot of complications come from diabetes, and as Taylor mentioned, there are a lot of complications already that come from homelessness. So, for example, these are pretty gnarly pictures, but wound and skin infections are very common and can be exacerbated by diabetes, as foot neuropathy and numbness can lead to situations such as these, as well as these. So it can lead to amputations, string ulcers, intense wounds, and this is a little bit hard to see in here, but if you do develop diabetic retinopathy, this would be the vision that you have. This is another complication that comes from diabetes, so you can lose your vision as well.
And so some of these systemic issues that our patients experience who are both homeless and diabetic is that they need to take insulin to help manage and control their diabetes. However, insulin is a hard medication to take because we're very specific about its condition. And so our patients experience a lot of fear over having it because there's needle stereotyping of having to shoot up on the streets. And in addition to that, they have to shoot up in very specific areas such as their butts or their abdomens, and that can be really traumatic for them to do that in front of other people, as well as the fact that these medications are a commodity. Needles are a commodity, so people get higher risk of being stolen by other people living on the streets, other people in shelters with them. In addition to that, there's poor patient education regarding how important regular insulin usage is. So our patients sometimes they delay their usage or they change their prescription to make it last longer, which thereby weakens the insulin and then exacerbates the current illness, as well as the problem that I mentioned earlier, proper storage. Insulin needs to be refrigerated, can't be on direct sunlight, and so it often becomes invalid and unusable because of the living conditions of homeless patients.
So our vision, as we embark on this journey with you, is that we want to reduce diabetic complications, we want to empower our patients, and we want to help them use their medication properly. So our solution is that at one of our clinics that serves on Skid Row, we would implement refrigerated locker system that would allow patients to keep their insulin in a safe, controlled environment. We're taking away their worries of having their medication stolen, giving them a safe place to inject their insulin, and overall allowing them to overcome those barriers to their proper medication usage. Right now, we were planning to start with a trial of 24 lockers in those 24 patients. We estimate that over time, it could save LACHC approximately $10,000 a year due to the fact that if a patient does lose their medication, a lot of times it's a lot of extra work for our pharmacy staff, and it costs a lot more for us to keep replacing their insulin, as well as the fact that our patients are having more and more complications if they're not properly using their medication, and so the treatment is that much more expensive for us. This project also has a lot of additional applications that we could apply in the future if it goes very well. There's HIV medications that are very complicated to store. Hep C, we have a lot of patients who suffer from those complications and those conditions, and so those lockers are that's another way that they can keep those medications safe. So the overall ask for U.S. funders is we approximate about installing the lockers, having a pilot team, we feel like this initial cost would eventually be offset and save our company a lot of money in the long run, and would result in a lot of better health outcomes for our diabetic homeless patients and possibly for all of our homeless patients.
I'll just do quick reactions. Working on your ums, so I stopped counting after I got to 10. So just being aware of it, just because we talked about that today. The slide deck is very professional looking, like it's a very slick looking deck. So, and I liked I still am a little like, the 10% thingy, but I like the diagram with the people and the changing colors. I think it's an interesting idea. Like, I just think it's a very interesting idea. I hadn't heard about, it makes sense, the needle stereotyping, but I had never connected that as being a concern of people who are homeless who have diabetes, so I thought that was, that was a new thing that I learned today. So, and then for looking at your budgeting, I would play around with budget and numbers and things like that a little bit more, and I think Bigler can help you with that too, and your coaches can help you with that. Just because when you say we're gonna save $10,000 a year for our organization, I'm kinda like, so what? So talking about it, I think you can extrapolate that number to be quite larger actually, if you look at the cost of caring for the wounds that you might be avoiding or potential bed days, things like that. I think you're just looking at the the pharmacy costs.
Yeah.
So really looking at, because there is so much funding related to homelessness right now, looking at costs to the overall system for bed days or ER visits and treatment and everything for the wounds that could be potentially avoided. Not just what you're recruiting as an organization, so thinking about that bigger number. And also you probably will want to up your ask amount too. So thinking about, so I was like, oh, that's nothing, that's super easy. I feel like
an outreach sheet to let people know.
yeah, like you're staffing over, there's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would put the budget breakdown in it. Just do a number, and know off the top, you're gonna know what those elements are, but I wouldn't put it up on the screen. But I like seeing the slide of the locker, like it just looked cool, like it looks really interesting. So I would just play with your numbers a little bit more and think through kind of the logic chain related to especially cost savings from this.
And, I have two comments. One on your colors that you flipped on the people. I would make the last group your bright color, and also be aware that for colorblind people, they can't see red, and so.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if you really want to say, here's our population, make that the one that stands out the most. My question is more of a clinical question. Patients take their insulin at different times. How are they going to access this? Is it outside the clinic? If it's locked up at 5 o'clock, how are they going to get their medication? And, I would probably want to know how it's going to really work in terms of patients being able to get their medication and take it and then leave it there or not. And because insulin, depending upon what they are and how they need to take it, after meals, before meals, bedtime, morning, and I don't get it from that, how it's going to work.
Is that something that, because we have 5 minutes, we've been told by our coaches that there might be time for questions?
There's gonna be questions and answers afterwards, so somebody will ask, anticipate somebody will ask you that,
Right.
and you can get into more of the logistic details at that point.
Do you feel like it needs to be in the 5 minutes as well?
I was saying, how is this going to work? Your clinic closes at 5 o'clock, and these patients need insulin after 5 o'clock. So unless you already know the answers to some of these things, and you can say it's going to be easy to access because everyone will have a combination, and it's outside the clinic, and it's safe, so they can access it whenever they want, and they don't need help, and everything will be in there, or we restock for them. When we see that they're low, we restock so they don't have to ask for a new refill. I mean, some of the logistics of that, it only takes 2 seconds to put it in your presentation. We'll save a lot of questions on the end. Because then I sort of stopped listening, saying, wait, how is this going to work?
Okay.
Yeah. So I would do maybe one slide. I would not do the budget slide, and instead do a slide that has kind of almost like a stick figure diagram of like, this is when the lockers are available, this is that kind of visually an infographic that kind of shows when it's available and how that would work. And that also tells the audience like you've thought through all those things, so maybe they won't ask about it.
Right.
And no budget's fine.
I would just say this is going to cost this much, now, yeah.
I had a thought, so you have a slide of the tent, I think, one of the tent slides of the two. I actually think you might wanna start there and say, you live here, imagine you live here. And there's a lot of you that, people like this that live here, here's our slide, the whole thing. And, yes, and imagine what would it be like if you had a medical condition that required you to have to do various things in here. I didn't get it, like I didn't fully put it all together until that point. So you basically show me my house and you show me the challenges of my living space, right? And then you go, imagine if you had you had a disease and you had to take drugs, and where would you store it, and where would you do it, and when would you do it privately, especially because there's drug users everywhere around you, right? Like all your techie words, I feel like you need to make a story word for the equivalent of it. Do you know what I mean? Like needle stereotyping, like, but when you go, look, you know, somebody who's trying to take their diabetic medication next to somebody who's, you know, shooting up heroin. Oh, got it, right? Like I was lost in as a person, you're teaching me too, so thank you. And yeah, so that was what I was present to. I also tune in more currently to you as a speaker than I do to you. So there's a sense of maybe just kind of working on the trustworthy point. Like I'm like, there's something in the way she's communicating, and I get you're both competent, but
It's
there's a bias
spacing.
from it.
It's the spacing.
Is it?
I felt you were rushed a little bit, and then you were summing up, so you were a little bit slower because you still had the time left. But you were like rushing through a little bit, and again, I think Arthur said, you know, when you speak too quickly, you may be knowledgeable, but you're not getting the empathy, and so that's where it was. I think.
Yeah, because you got the heart of you two. You also introduced your organization as an acronym first.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had to read the slide to know what you were introducing.
You were quoting the source of where we got the 50,000 instead of saying we're going to like
Yes.
And also, what is that? Like in this moment, I don't, LALC, okay, I don't even know the acronym yet, but like Los Angeles
Christian.
Christian Health Center.
Health
That's the name
Center.
of our clinic. She was citing the
I said
outline.
LCC too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, I don't get the connection to homelessness in the title, you know, it's like, does that make sense? So it's like, you've lost me at your title of your organization. So how do
Oh,
you?
we can't change that.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
not
but
trying to
just
change it,
right.
what's the mission of it, or what's the scope of why
No.
this community is helping, like some like little short thing. So it's like, we are this group that does this, moving on. Yeah, cause I was like, and then I was like, wait, it's in the slide, so I actually went up and caught it there.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the second presentation now. Thank you for the comments. Let's move it along.